explain how the webinar works if you've not been on one before. So we have done a few of these now, and I noticed some of you coming back to join us. So what I'd like you to ask you to do, if you want to ask a question as we go through, you'll notice that you have a hands up button on your screen, and if you click on that, you can send your notify Sinead that you have got a question, and you can send it through to her. And when we get to an appropriate place to stop, she'll let you know what the questions we have. Obviously, if during the webinar you feel like you want to ask a more detailed point and we haven't really got time during the session this morning to deal with it, then please feel free to email me directly or via Sinead, and I'll get back to you on that. Okay. We will also be quite happy to send out the slides, so if you're struggling to see the screen at the moment, or if you want to read them in more detail, I'm quite happy to send them out at the end of the session. Okay, so benchmarking the maturity of our safety culture. First and foremost, I wanted to just start by looking at the whole idea of benchmarking and what it is you might be wanting to do this type of exercise for. So very often people that come to us are looking at getting a sort of baseline to start with, and an idea, a picture of their safety culture and how it is at the moment. And then from that, we'll very often redo assessments over time to see how they progress. Or we may even benchmark a site, various sites they may have. So we do culture assessments across different sites and look at how they are comparing with each other. The important thing you must realise and you must get a grip of is, what are you actually looking at? What are you comparing? People come to us and say, we want to benchmark against other companies in similar organisations in our industry, and sometimes that's quite easy to do if you're quite typical of your company is quite a typical type of for that industry. So, for example, if you're in the construction industry and you're very much like other construction companies, then you can compare yourself quite readily in that environment. However, sometimes it's quite difficult to find something that really matches accurately in terms of size and activities, and it can be quite a complex exercise to do externally. And also as well, it's interesting to note that a lot of the details that you can find about organisations very much just look at their accident data. So maybe they might report their lost time injury rates or their accident frequency rates. And these can be quite a good guide, but I think sometimes you need to be careful as to how accurate are these when you're looking at other companies, both in terms of how well they may be reporting, obviously given the fact that they want to look good in front of people's eyes, especially tendering for work, and also as well thinking about your own accident data. How accurate is that? Is it a real reflection of your work environment? Sometimes actually having no accidents reported can give you a very rosy picture of the situation. And it could well be that there aren't many things going on because you do have very safe people and it's not a particularly hazardous environment. Or it could be because people don't actually recognise hazards and unsafe situations and incidents that actually would be classed as near misses, and so don't report anything like that. And the only things that come to your attention are the really serious incidents because people can't hide it. So under-reporting, I think, is a real issue you need to think about before you're benchmarking against things like accident data, because if you're not sure that you're actually getting a clear report, then looking at those figures is really not that reflective of the real picture. So what we've realised is in JOMC is that in order to benchmark, in order to get a true picture of your maturity level, you need to look at real action and behaviours that people are exhibiting or are not exhibiting, which is the other key area, things that are missing. So this is where we have now developed our benchmarking tool. Our tool has been put together to actually look at these particularly tangible and concrete activities that we've recognised need to be there and need to be demonstrated for the right reasons in organisations if you want to improve your maturity level. And this tool in itself that we use has been developed with those particular companies in mind that you can see on the screen now, together with a number of very experienced consultants from JOMC who've been working in this area for a long time. And together, over a period of many months, they came up with the things that really they felt were really tangible behaviours that they needed to see, and they'd experienced themselves in their own journey from basic level of maturity through to, a really sustainable high level of maturity. And that without these type of behaviours at all leadership levels through your business, you really struggle to make any change and to sustain it. So what we have here in the tool are it's like a 5x5 matrix, and it might sound a bit complicated, but I do have more information I can send out about it to make it a bit clearer after this webinar. So within the benchmarking tool, we have 5 areas which are indicators of maturity level, and within that you can attain 5 levels, and I'll show you a clearer picture in a minute. So what we have are these attributes, if you like, these sort of factors that have to be there within your safety culture and you have to look at within your safety culture to get a picture of where you're at. So number 1 is motivation. So why do you want to improve safety? What drives safety improvement in your organisation? I'll go through these in more detail in a minute. Number 2, how good are you at measuring performance? What indicators are you looking at? What do you focus on when you're thinking about your safety performance? 3, how well do you handle failure? So when things happen, how do you react to that? How do you deal with them? What's your action when something happens and things go wrong? 4, how do you reward action in your organisation? What is valued? What is promoted? And how is that rewarded in people's eyes? And number 5, who takes ownership and accountability of safety improvement? Who is managing this? Who sees it as a part of their role? So as I say, I'll go through these in more detail in a minute, just to give you more understanding of how you can move through the levels within those 5 areas. So within the tool we have, as I say, you have got those 5 areas which are important key areas that make up your safety culture. And then within those you can achieve various levels of maturity. And we look at the results of the culture assessment we have run, which will help to give us findings to look at, to compare against the tool. You can actually do the benchmarking tool as a standalone exercise. We do have it online, and we also have it on a paper version, and the safety team can go through it as a way of giving them an exercise and in understanding the sort of questions they should be trying to find answers to. So it may be something as an exercise to get started with if your team is still not sure about how to look at culture. And again, if you want me to send you more information about that, then please do send an email at the end, or let Sinead know, and I'll send that over to you, the information about the tool itself. So we can either run our safety culture assessment on site and then compare it to these particular expected bench activities that we want to see, and come up with a score on our benchmark at for the different leadership levels. And what's important is that we are able to collaborate and to corroborate, what people say. So managers may tell you one thing, and then employees will tell you something completely different about managers. And it's really important that you get a view of how employees see the activities that managers say they're doing. Because if it's actually successful as an activity, then it's got to be being received at the right by everyone on site for the right reasons. So, for example, if toolbox talks are actually being audited as taking place, then you can see the paperwork trail that says there are a toolbox talk every month. But when you talk to employees, they can't remember having one and they can't remember anything about it. Then as a training tool or a communication about safety activity, it's not effective, and arguably it's not being tested and checked to see if it's being effective. So it's happening because you've possibly got a target for it, but it isn't effective in its actual making a difference to people at the grassroots level. And these are the things we're looking at, where it really works in companies, where their culture is really positive and really high. They have got everything working in a two-way feedback process. They look continuously to improve, and without that type of engagement of people at the lower level, you really won't sustain any improvement. You'll always be dragging them along behind you rather than them being alongside, going with you. Okay, so obviously once we've got our benchmarking figures and scoring, if you like, across the different areas, these areas, we can then look at encouraging and making recommendations to encourage the specific behaviours that maybe are there but not for the right reasons, or are not there at all at the moment and need to be initiated. And that may be requiring some training to get managers on board, to get directors on board, to get them to see their responsibilities. It may require training to give people skills to go out there and engage with people. It's not something that managers actively, naturally do. Sometimes it's more difficult for some of them than others. So it's about, at this point, we would obviously be about making recommendations that sort of suit getting the maturity level to the next stage. Okay, and just as an example there, from what I've said, we sometimes see this type of feedback. In a culture assessment, managers will say things like, yeah, I go out on the shop floor regularly to promote safety. I'm walking around and looking for things, and they may, in the interview I do with them, they may be telling me lots of things that they know they should be doing. Yeah, we should be going around, we should be walking around. And then they'll sometimes say, I'm very busy and I don't always have time, but I try, and things like that. And you have to be very openly positive about that, because you can see that they understand that they should be doing it. And then when you talk to the employees, they go, oh, well, yes, well, a couple of them come round occasionally, but it tends to only be when there's something wrong and they want to tell us off about it, or they want to make a big deal about something. So when you then look at that in the real context, you've got, as I say, managers thinking that they actively should be out there doing something, but they're not doing it. And when they do it, they're not doing it very positively. It's not being received very positively by the employees. So obviously, really, if you've got managers who are not consistent in their message and who are not getting out there for the right reasons, then that's a very low level of manager behaviour as far as we're concerned in terms of culture. Now, it's quite easy to change, but sometimes it's quite complex as to why they don't do it, as I say. So that's something else you need to look at. You can't just say to all managers, get out there twice a week, if they're not going out with the right attitude to dealing with things. Okay, so just to give you a better picture, you can see there how the matrix looks. You have across the top those areas we've talked about, the 5 areas that you have to think about when you're looking at benchmarking culture. And then we have down the side the 5 levels of culture that you can achieve. Obviously, it's a moving feast with this, because what you find is you'll have employees in a one level, and supervisors and managers and directors can be very much in other levels, depending on the education they've had and how much involvement they have in safety. So it's important that it isn't just a case of getting a figure, oh, we're all at level 3. It can be quite a sliding scale, where sometimes you have employees very much in level 1 and 2, and managers maybe more up to level 3, because they have had some training and some awareness raising exercises and are a bit more on board. So what we would do is score this type of sheet, but very much with a feel for how people are moving, and in which direction they're moving. So what we have to come up with these scores is, as I say, lists of behaviours in each of those achievable levels for each of those areas. So we have, for employees, supervisors, managers and directors, we have scores that they can achieve for motivation, which will give us a level as to whether they're in the unfocused or the proactive or the team-focused areas, level of maturity. And the same for measuring safety performance. And we can go through and check off those behaviours. Now, have anybody got any questions at this point before I move on? I've rattled on there with a lot of information. Have we had any hands up, Sinead?
No hands up, Liz.
Okay, you're all with me.
Hold on a moment. Dave? Hi, Dave Hopkins from Pilkington.
Hi, Liz, it's David.
Hi.
Liz, when you mentioned you have a list of behaviours for each of the boxes, can you split those behaviours, employees, supervisors, managers, so you would see different behaviours for each element in the box?
That's right, yes. We have four. It's difficult because you tend to use the word level twice, but with different meanings. So we have behaviours that we expect to see from employees, from supervisors, managers and directors, and that sort of level of, or senior level of leadership. And what we have is not only behaviours we expect to see from them, but also behaviours we expect them to be looking for in others. So we expect managers to be checking their supervisors are doing the behaviour. So you are not just looking at what a manager might do in terms of his own behaviour, but also how he is monitoring and challenging behaviour from others that he should be, where he should be expecting to see it. So it's quite a comprehensive checklist, if you like. And what we also do when we score it is we have, because obviously in some situations you may have some managers who do things and some who don't, and some supervisors who do things and some who don't. So what you find is when you're trying to score it, you either have a completely, it's not happening at all level, you know, a 0 score, it's not happening here at all. Or you can have a situation where they're making the right move in the right direction, and some people are starting to get on board with the behaviours, and some people are starting to exhibit the right behaviours. So you may have a score for some people doing it, and then you'll have a higher score where everybody's doing it, and you're really moving into the next layer of, you're moving up to the next level of maturity.
Can you just follow up? Yeah, that's fine. Can I just follow up very quickly? Do you check the behaviours through observations, or do you take, for example, a 10% sample group throughout the organisation and do group sessions or interviews with them?
Well, what we tend to do is when we do our culture assessments, we would be interviewing probably up to sort of 15, possibly 20% if we can, of people across all the different levels of the organisation and across all shifts and areas. And that obviously gives us a very comprehensive representation to be able to sort of tease out these behaviours that we want to see. And very often people will tell you exactly, give you examples of things which will show you whether these manager behaviours are actually, they understand what managers are doing it for and why managers are there and what their purpose is. So you get a feel for not only are things happening, but how are they being received? Because sometimes they can be visibly there, but then they're seen as a negative. As I say, employees see managers turning up on site in a negative way as opposed to it being a positive example of their commitment to safety. So it's an interesting exercise to do. If we don't get to do that up front, as I say, what we can do is give the tool to the safety team, and sometimes they'll go out and try and come up with all the answers themselves, either from experience they've had with incidents that have happened or their own sort of knowledge of the site, or they may go out and do some observations themselves. So there are different ways of attacking it, and depending on how you want to, whether you want to do it in-house or sort of via our culture assessment route.
Okay, thanks Liz. Yep.
Great. Okay, so as I said, I was going to give more into detail about these particular areas, so that will help you to understand how you move through the levels, as you of maturity as you go through these different particular areas that are under safety culture. So motivation, as I say, what is driving people in the organisation to make safety happen and to get behind safety improvement? Now, if you're in level 1, you very much are doing it for the only reason you would do anything to do with safety is because you legally have to. You don't want to get in trouble. You'll do the bare minimum that has been asked, from maybe an enforcement order or some sort of accident that's happened, and you've got some comeback in some way, and you'll do whatever whatever that asks for because you want to stay trading. But it's very much safety is one of those things that I only do if I'm made to. So quite a low level, as you say, unfocused on safety, probably focused on a lot of other things, and may well be a very productive business, but in terms of safety, they just see it as a, something we have to do in order to comply with the law. Then moving to level 2, still in the legal compliance stage, they still at level, still realise that they're doing things because there is a legal obligation to do them. But they've now realised that there's also a financial cost to this as well. They may have had some incidents that have maybe attributed to them accruing fines, or losing work, for example, because of other companies not being able to use them due to their incidents. So they're starting to be a bit more motivated to deal with these things, but probably from not a very ethical reason. It's financial. It's about saving money, stopping them getting fined, stopping them getting in trouble, and it's again a sort of a very good reason. If you're a business, it has very tangible control, if you like, from the finance director, saying, we've incurred all these costs and I don't want you to incur any more, do something about it. But again, it's sort of quite a backward thinking way of working, and it means that unless you can justify the cost for resources being spent on safety improvement, and you have got to play the cost card, the finance card, in order to get support for your safety improvement. They're not going to be behind you at the top. If you're meeting the legal bare minimum and they haven't had an incident about it, then you'll struggle to get any support for your change with this type of level of, with directors particularly at this level of maturity. Okay, moving on to level 3, start to realise that not only does it save you money because you have less incidents, but it also gives a good impression. It starts to be seen as a more positive way. having a good safety record starts to get you more work and improves your reputation. So it's not only good business sense in the sense of saving you money, but it's good business sense because it now makes you a more competitive offering in the marketplace. Certainly in terms of sort of when you're looking in a contractor sense, in terms of building industry work, you know, if you've got poor safety records, you're going to struggle to get on any recommended list because principal contractors are just not going to want to take you on. So, you know, it's an important factor in how you look to other people. Then moving up to maturity level, you start to get to a place where senior managers in particular, certain directors, are doing it for the right reasons. The ethical and moral stance is coming into play, and they realise that it's just not right to hurt people who work for you or people who are connected to the business in any way, and they should be actively taking responsibility for and being motivated to do it for the right reasons. And then at the top level, it's so ingrained in how people think they don't understand why you ask the question, really. Everyone from the receptionist to the CEO are focused on continuous improvement, of continuously thinking about safety. It's not something that's just left for a safety meeting. It's certainly not something that has to be fought for in the boardroom in terms of resources. And very often by the time you get to this stage, you've got a very comprehensive sort of continuous improvement system going that shows how your, not just your safety improvements, but your other, improvements have probably led to greater efficiency, and you've got more backup in terms of it being a very good business model to run with. So it isn't just about people making the right choices because they just want to be nice people. You know, as a business, it is effective. Working in this way is an effective way of operating. Okay, so moving on to area 2, we've got performance, looking forward or back. So what are you measuring in this organisation when you think about safety? If you're at level 1, you don't think there's any point, primarily because people in this level just think accidents happen. Just, you can't stop them, they just happen. And what's the point in dwelling on an incident that happened? And you might just blame the person that was involved and just get rid of them if you can, or do whatever you need to just sort it out very locally. But it's very much a case of it'll happen again because we can't really stop it. We're not going to be able to change this environment. So in terms of measuring something, there's no point. They don't see that having they have no desire, if you like, to spend time trying to track things like how many eye injuries they've had. They'll just accept that if you work with these tools, you'll have eye injuries, and they'll just buy PPE if they, because it's suggested that they should. So, it's a very, very, as I say, head in the sand way of going on. Now, number 2, they're not actively looking for things, but they do count the obvious. So when things are reported, injuries reported, they will be logged, and there will be some sort of record of that. But again, there won't be a particularly active tracking mechanism to try and sort of see what trends there might be. That would be far too advanced for this level. But they may well, locally, those guys will probably be able to tell you that they've all had similar injuries with something, and they may well be looking to sort out the obvious problems with some physical changes to the environment that people are working in. But again, it's not, they can tell you what they've had reactively and in terms of injuries, and they're obviously having to record and report anything under the HSE guidance, but they wouldn't necessarily be doing any tracking at this stage. Then when you get to level 3, it starts to be more proactive. You're looking actively at hazards and incidents and trying to learn from them. So this is where you're starting to get some near miss come in. You're starting to ask people to look for hazards and get some investigation going on. Again, can be very patchy, can be very much led by the locally by just the safety team that are there, and very much a case of when things are spotted, for example on safety walk-rounds or during audits, they are dealt with. And so there is the nature of being more proactive. Again, maybe at this stage not necessarily you can have activity at this level with your supervisors and your managers who are being encouraged to get out there, but it may be that you often find you've still got employees at a much lower level who are unsure as to why you should bother trying to look for things, because accidents just happen and they're still in that mindset of, you know, the safety team will spot things and tell me what to do about it. So why should I bother looking at, you know, for things? And people, it's amazing, people will walk past hazards and unsafe conditions for years, and the more they walk past, the more they're getting, you know, this sort of blinkered view, and it's amazing what companies will have lived with, and then as you start to promote this idea that people should be looking, they all come out the woodwork, and sometimes this change from 2 to 3 can be quite a shock, because you suddenly find, as you encourage people to look for things, they find things, no, lo and behold. And now all of a sudden, you've got far more activity with managers having to deal with stuff and supervisors having to deal with things and close things out. And it can actually look on quite negatively. You know, all of a sudden, I've got more work to do. It was much better when I just dealt with stuff when it you know, it became serious enough on my radar. You know, now I'm having to actively go out and look for things, and I don't really want to find anything because I haven't got time to sort it out. So again, it can be you can encourage the right activity to be happening for level 3, but it's not necessarily being done for the right reasons, because people's education and their understanding is not there. You need to promote the activity with some awareness raising, you know, of why hazard reporting is important and how it drives that your prevention is becoming to the fore. You're not just reacting and dealing with stuff after the fact, and you're looking at real prevention of injuries rather than just accepting that they're going to happen. So number 4, this is where you are not only you know, learning locally as you would in level 3, but you now start to really look at your performance in terms of the number of near misses reported, the number of unsafe behaviours you see. You've got a tracking system very much in place for this that is actively, you know, promoting, not promoting, but actively producing reports and trends and, you know, lots of data around very much sort of proactive measures, so that you're not just, again, reacting to a lost time injury and dealing with that. You are trying to prevent that next one happening by looking at the very, very bottom of the triangle. And close out of a near miss and an investigation of a near miss is taken as seriously as if that was a major incident. And this is unfortunately something that tends to, which is what stops people moving into level 4. They will have a near miss system very often. When they're still in level 3, they'll develop a near miss system. But as I say, people report a few things, but nothing happens really about it, or they don't see that anything has happened. They don't get any feedback about it. It's maybe seen as in a less important way because it was only a near miss and somebody didn't really get hurt. So it's not given the credence it should. And then people, you know, you've sort of promoted it as an activity, and then employees say, well, I sent a couple of near misses in and nothing ever happens and I never get any feedback about it, so what's the point? So again, trying to move into level 4 is about people understanding why a near miss is a really important thing to be investigating, and why it's important to be constantly feeding back about what's been found and what has been changed. so people get that awareness raising from it. And it moves people from thinking that injuries are totally, something you can't control in this environment. And as you investigate near miss and you show people how things could have been prevented, you start to move their mental belief about that into a more positive place. And then they see there's a point to getting behind improvement, because they can see that it's actually stopping injuries they thought you could never really control. So it's a process of getting people on board. It isn't just a process of producing near-miss forms and sending them out and expecting people to fill them in. Feedback on these things is really important. Okay, and then finally, to get to the top level, you are taking every opportunity to share internally and externally. And to do that, you're looking for opportunities to do that, and you, as an organisation, would have in place learning forums, learning, sharing communication activities that are about, everyone being able to be open and honest about what's going on and learning from each other. So it isn't just about sending a brief around the site when something happens. It's about we're all here as one big business, and we're going to learn from each other, and we're going to learn externally, and we'll benchmark ourselves against others, and we'll try and find opportunities to work with other people, work with other companies, and see how they do things, and really get a feeling of a continuous learning process. So we're very much focused on the bottom of the triangle, but with a sense of continuous improvement and learning. Okay, number 3. So when things do happen, which they will, how are you dealing with them? So if you're at level 1, again, you're in that head in the sand ostrich. I just ignore it unless I absolutely have to deal with it and I can't avoid it. So if it's a serious enough incident and the HSE is involved and somebody's going to be expecting me to deal with it, then I will. But, if the guy goes off and with his broken leg and doesn't bother, saying anything and comes back, then we'll just blame him, and we'll do what we have to, but we won't really make any changes because it was just his fault. We're always looking to blame someone else anyway, and we are very much into still in that mindset of, you can't really avoid these things, so what's the point in trying to make changes? So as you move to level 2, you have deal with the immediate cause, but you are, again, not really investigating in any depth. So you may ask what happened, there may be some sort of local questioning of the situation. Again, probably very quick to blame the operator, or again, just accept it as this is just fate, you can't stop these things, it will happen. So you're not looking for any in-depth root cause analysis here. You're not really trying to get to a point where you can prevent this happening in the sense of real proactive management, but you will probably do something like find a physical route to sort the problem, possibly get more PPE in, possibly get some sort of, something that doesn't cost too much, something that just seems to be an immediate cause, immediate solution. And then often that ends up leading to repeat incidents because you haven't really sorted the problem, and obviously that root cause is still there and lying there waiting to happen again. So as you move into the area 3, I'd say you've more investigation because you're more proactive at this stage. You're more actively wanting to try and sort it out and find out what's happened. Very much usually centred around the SHE team though, rather than any wider involvement of managers and supervisors. They'll very much be leading this process and asking questions and doing interviews and things to find out what's happened, and probably very much be expected to come up with a solution. So, come and tell us what you found and what we should do about it. But part of this is a lot more in-depth and so far more likely to get to a wider cause and to be looking more broadly about around the incident. Unfortunately, what you sometimes find here is that there's an element of, because we now have targets around performance when we're in level 3, we're getting into level 3 activity, managers are very reluctant to undermine their targets and to not achieve their target because they don't want to be seen poorly in anyone's light. So what they you can find is things are hidden and swept under the carpet very rapidly, and unless they absolutely can't be hidden, basically. So sometimes you'll find things have happened in your absence from site, so if you're not on site all the time, and you only sort of know about it via the grapevine. But and so it's quite a difficult one, because you want to give people targets to aim for. You want them to feel like they understand what they're trying to achieve, but very often it can have a negative effect, where, especially with trying to encourage more reporting, managers in particular don't like the fact that now we've got people involved in safety more, they're starting to report things more. As I say, not only does it increase their workload, but it also increases the stats on the page. So it's about them understanding how, getting things reported gives you the opportunity to make the right improvements and for them not to happen again. And again, it's about that raising awareness with the management level and supervisor level that these things shouldn't be seen negatively and should be openly encouraged. And then they can make true, real practical improvements that will help to stop them happening again. So as you go up to level 4, you very much have more, a full investigation of all incidents, and as I say, near misses are also seen in this sense as well, seen as important to investigate as incidents themselves. And in this investigation, there's very much a cross-representation of all levels, and definitely across different areas of the business. So you are getting people involved from the real grassroots level, where they obviously have a different sort of slant on things. But what it does is it stops people from thinking that safety is something that is done just by this cheating, and it gets them involved and it gets them to understand and have more understanding of how accidents happen and how they can be prevented and injuries can be prevented. So we're very much looking at root cause, we're getting right to the bottom of things, and therefore changes can be made, which then can be shared, and it's as I say, more of a continuous improvement process then, rather than just waiting for something to happen. And again, level 5, you are when you're in this area, it's again, like I say, continuous improvement is the sort of buzzword really for very proactive sharing, very much want to see yourself as leaders in your field, in your area, and are developing best practice for activities and ways of working, and are happy to share those incidents, are happy to share your learning, share your solutions, and to talk about them as widely as possible, and to see yourself as a sort of industry leader in that sense. So you're benchmarking yourself, as you say, you're externally, but you're also expected from the board level down that things will not be hidden, things will be used, incidents will be used as a way of learning, and will openly be investigated and learnt from. Okay, reward and promotion. So what are you valuing in this organisation? What gets rewarded? What is promoted? In level 1, you're very much in the reward for people. Their pay is about getting the job done. It's a daily, we pay you to do this job, and employees think, I'm paid to do a job, I'm paid to get this job done. and so they're not sort of pushed towards taking part in any type of recognition for this in any sense, but it's just seen as a daily part of getting things done. And as I say, because they see safety as just something you do when you absolutely have to, it's not recognised in any way at all. Level 2, they do have they're a little bit more target driven, but it's again mainly towards production targets. So there will be targets around. You will see boards with graphs and things on, but they tend to be what we need to produce, what we need to get out. The reward will be for how much you've achieved in terms of that. So shifts will have, you know, focus on achieving a certain turnaround and a certain throughput, for example, or achieving their service within a certain amount of days, or however it's measured. And these things are very much sometimes tied into the contract that people work on. You know, there may be very big fines for missing that deadline. So the need to drive people in a production sense is very key. In all organisations, you've got to produce something within a time frame, otherwise you're not profitable. But it's not seen. Safety in itself is not given a target, but if you have something happen, you may well lose a bonus because you've had an injury or you've had an incident that has given caused downtime and therefore caused loss of production. So the whole way safety is promoted, if you like, or is not rewarded, is in the sense of it being seen negatively as because we're in the financial focus here. It's just seen in terms of downtime and how it's lost us production. Then when we get into level 3, so we're more productive here, we're more proactive. You've got safety targets that are around looking at your LTI rates and near misses. We put discussions there that may, if you've done any of our programs, that would be sort of SUSE discussions, safety first discussions, that type of safety engagement. You may have managers have a target for how many discussions they get up to and how many near misses they report. And you may well find that when these targets are hit, there is a reward. In this type of environment, people look at lost time injury rates, and there's, and then you go to sites and there's boards which is telling you how long it is since the last one, and people get fleeces or some sort of voucher or something for hitting, a year without a lost time injury, and this type of level of reward. So safety targets are very much seen in terms of accident data. Near misses, as I say, there may well be a target in order that you have so many come in, but they tend to find that at this point that managers do them to hit that target rather than do them because it's the right thing to do in terms of sending near misses in terms of learning from them. So what we say here is you've got the proactive actions going on, you've got the activities now in place. People are looking for near misses, they are reporting stuff, they are getting out, and you've got targets that people understand, but they still may not be doing it for the right reasons. And in order to shift to the next level, they have got to understand that it's about this continuous strive to be looking for that next safety issue and dealing with it, and it's about reminding people that safety should be on their radar all the time, not just on a Monday morning or on the last day of the month when they're about to be audited for their not hitting targets. Beware audit systems where people have green boxes, because it doesn't mean they're actually gone and done anything to fill that box that was particularly useful. So if you're looking at that type of feedback system in your management system, just go out and do some checking as to what's behind those green boxes. So are the near misses that were sent in order to get that box green effectively closed out and fed back, or are they sitting there, or were they not really proper near misses anyway? They were just made up to get the tick in the box. When you are in level 4, you are recognised. Things that good safety is reinforced. People are praised for doing the right thing. Targets are met in terms of lost time and accident frequency, obviously, but also in terms of making improvements and looking for opportunities to make improvements. So you may well be looking at awards, but it's for the right reasons. Again, not just to have a plaque on the wall that is showing that you've gone through a process. It's done because you're actively want to recognise and to go through the audit process, for example, to learn and to make those improvements. When you're at level 5, you are actively looking at ways to celebrate safety success. Again, maybe by going for awards, but also by recognising people who've made a contribution, giving people who've come forward with ideas, who have gone out of their way to do something from a safety perspective. You're looking at regularly opportunities to promote from all levels of the organisation, to promote that idea of best practice, of identifying the safest way of doing things, and to be rewarding people for doing the right thing for the right reasons. And that shows the value that safety has. So if safety is not valued and it's production that's valued, and you're in level 2 area, then people know that, and people just will always think that anything you do anything you are doing which has a safety title on it is because you have to, because the law says so. But really, the only real focus that you are the company is interested in is production. Okay, and lastly, into our last area, really important one, this, and quite difficult to tease out. At level 1, people very much think safety is nothing to do with my job. Safety is nothing to do with me. I don't have to get involved. I don't have to get behind things. If the company has to do something, then that's their problem. It's nothing to do with me. They won't actively get on board with any type of training if it was offered, for example. They don't actively get involved with trying to find a root solution to anything. And may well even be scuppering any activity to try and improve it. So in this area, you're reacting to incidents. You're looking to do immediate investigation, and as I said, often the first thing that happens is the person who's injured gets the blame because they shouldn't have been doing that, or they should have been wearing the PPE and they weren't, and that's the immediate cause. The SHE team, if there is one, possibly quite small, or quite under-resourced, very often are seen as the only people that do anything with safety, and that's from all levels, from not just the employee level but from managers as well. The SHE team will come out and do risk assessments and tell us what we have to do. And if they don't tell us anything, then we won't think about it, and we'll carry on doing it the way we've done it for years. Getting into level 3, still tend to blame the workforce, but you may start to have a wider view. It's still a little bit reactive, but you are now getting people who are prepared to start reporting things and bringing things to the fore. You're encouraging that reporting of near misses. You're encouraging them to bring forward injuries. But it's a dicey area, because if people still feel they got blamed, then they won't come forward. And again, as I say, managers won't want to hear if it's going to mean that it ruins their target rate. But you're starting to get people to see here that they can prevent injuries if things are investigated. They start to see that there's a way to make improvement and prevent things, and so they start to understand that they should be doing things. They should be taking ownership of reporting something, and they should be, taking ownership of dealing with a spill. But often they don't. So in level 3, they know they should, and maybe some are starting to get there. Is what we usually find. You get the ball rolling, and you may well have pockets that work very well, and supervisors who are able to promote that. And again, it needs to be for the right reasons, and people sometimes aren't there for the right reasons. When you get to accountability and accountability level 4, blame is very much shared by everyone. People understand their responsibility when something's happened, and how they are personally accountable for that, their part in that, because there's such a wide investigation. And so everyone will want to take ownership and improve improve things. So they'll be looking to be involved in inspections and reporting, and when things are brought up, management don't need to be prompted to deal with it. It's seen as part of their role. They take it very seriously. And number 5, just culture. Hard to get to, because you do need accountability, and people will see if they're held accountable because they've done something they shouldn't, they'll see that they're being blamed. So it's quite a hard one to get to. But it's about, again, transparency in the reporting system and transparency of the feedback, and showing people how improvements have been made and that where responsibility is being shared. That's the key to getting to this level of just culture. And they can only do that with a very open and honest system for investigation and communication about these issues. Okay, so I feel like I've rattled through that. What we would then do, as I say, is to score your levels of supervisor, employee, manager and director in those 5 areas. And as I said, we have a tool. Our tool has questions for each of those 4 leadership levels, employee levels, and against those 5 areas. And then we can score them against those 5 levels. So I'm sorry that sounds a little bit confused. So as you probably remember from the matrix that I showed you, we have the motivation and reward and handling failure, etc. across the top, and then the levels are down the side that you can achieve in those areas. And we'd look for a score for all of those 4 levels of employee and how they relate to each other. So as I say, the tool itself we can send you more information about. Obviously what we would do at the end of that session is to give you some recommendations for where you need to improve and how you need to move forward. And as I say, what you can do is to go through the tool yourself, and then we can then help you look at what you found and suggest how you can make improvements from that. So any questions about that? As I say, if you'd like the slide pack or information about the, then you can go to ActionAid to send it out, or my email address is there if you've got to quickly write it down. But please feel free to send me any questions you might have, or as I say, ask for the slide pack or some more information about the benchmarking tools. Thank you.
Hello, has anybody got any questions for Liz? No.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for joining.